Hello and welcome back to the Opposites Abroad podcast, a podcast about all things travel. And today we are talking about a city you might have heard us talking about quite a lot before. Probably not giving away a huge secret to say we're both fans of it. We're talking Tokyo. It's Charlie Bosco here, joined as ever by my good friend TT down in Denver. And it's fair to say we've both got a little bit of a man crush on Tokyo.
Yeah, I think Tokyo is one of the best places in the world.
Tokyo, of course, is the capital and the focal point of Japan. Japan's the world's 11th most populous country and 4th largest economy, but 3/4 of the country is forest or mountains. There's a remarkable amount of untouched wilderness in Japan, but it means that the coastal areas are very densely populated, particularly Tokyo. So Tokyo is the biggest city on the planet if you include the metropolitan area and then Saitama, Kawasaki, Yokohama, all the so-called suburbs which surround it. But you really have to include them because you can't tell when you go from Tokyo to Yokohama or Saitama. It's just all one enormous metropolis. So, biggest city on the planet, one of the most interesting to visit. Just continuing my little history geography lesson on Japan for a second. There are clouds on the horizon for Japan. The population is expected to go from 125 million to 88 million by 2065, which is crazy because right now 37 million people live in Tokyo. So it's already making up about a quarter of Japan's population. How that will change in the coming years is hard to say, but it has the highest average age and the fastest aging population of any country in the world, and projections are that there will be one working person for every non-working person by 2060 in Japan. So it's going to be an interesting century for Japan. I don't feel particularly optimistic. One person summarized it to me when they said in 1980 Japan was living in the year 2000. And in 2025, Japan is living in the year 2000. And it's one of those places that looks super modern. You go and you think, oh my God, this is crazy, all the flashing lights. It's actually quite backwards, isn't it?
I don't know. I think that's an interesting point about their population because there's a kind of a de-evolution of the world in some ways because there's been studies that the more educated people are and the more intelligent people are, the less kids they tend to have. And generally, the uneducated, the really destitute, tend to have these massive families, and so it's like you get the smarter people with PhDs and doctorates that tend to have one or two kids, and you get just unsuccessful, maybe not very smart people that have 9-10 kids, and the world just gets dumber and dumber and dumber. So I just think that's really interesting because I think of Japan as, and the Japanese in general, is very cultured, very smart. They're my favorite culture of any country I've ever traveled to, and I've been to almost 90 countries. I think they're just polite, they're orderly, they're helpful. Now, I know there's a dark underbelly to Japan, and people say, well, if you live there, it's different, and they treat different people from different places differently, but I've had nothing but good experiences, and I wish when I'm in the United States and I'm hearing some American be incredibly loud and rude, or refusing to stand in line, or weaving around at the airport so nobody can get by him. I'm like, man, I wish I was in Japan.
But that underbelly, it's not even an underbelly. Japan's work culture is quite backwards. Being employed by the same company your whole life is really admired, and seniority, literally just time served, often dictates promotions.
Yeah.
And I just think in a world that's changing as fast as ours and where you have to be as mobile and agile as ours, that really rigid work structure looks pretty outdated.
Well, and that's part of why they don't want to have families.
Yeah.
Because they, if you're working 1 million hours and you just don't have time, because a lot of their culture is you're expected to go out with the boss in the evening and go get drinks with the boss, and where you get your initial job is incredibly important, and all that pressure. That's that's one of those interesting psychology of being of Eastern culture versus Western culture in some ways, because South Korea is very similar to that as well.
But they have a demographic crisis, and quite a few countries do. So Canada, where I live, they have a demographic problem in that the population is aging. There are less people working versus the number of retired or non-working people.
Yeah.
But Canada can import people at an incredible rate because people want to live here. And one of the big issues that Japan is facing, by the way, this is going to be a very positive podcast. I know we're dwelling on the negative randomly, but we'll get to the good stuff. But one of the reasons that Japan is struggling is that so few foreigners live there and want to live there because their culture is so baked in, hey?
Yeah, yeah, and I've heard it's a great place to visit, but not a great place to live. And they're not always super welcoming to foreigners. It's probably like if you move to a little town in Utah and you're not Mormon. It's nice to visit, but you probably don't want to live there. But to visit, I just think Tokyo is amazing. I've been there on 2 different trips. I would love to go back to Japan more. I'd love to go to Osaka. I'd love to go to Okinawa. I'd love to just explore more. And I feel like Japan in general is a place you could go every year for the rest of your life and still have things you didn't see and still be learning things. It's just such a cool country.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I was lucky enough to work in Tokyo once or twice a year for 4 or 5 years. So I've been, I don't know, 7, 8 times. I could never figure out where I was. Sometimes I'd be walking along and go, oh, I've been here before. And then you walk for another hour and find another place you've been before. But if someone put me in the middle of Tokyo, I couldn't navigate any better than the first time I went there because it is just so huge.
And what makes Tokyo? We did a podcast on China, big Chinese cities. What is about Tokyo that is so awesome compared to Beijing?
That's a good question. On the face of it, they don't look dissimilar, do they? It's kind of big streets and language you can't understand, and you aesthetically, by being a middle-aged white guy, are the minority. So it doesn't look that different, but the people are incredibly polite. The streets are remarkably clean. It's for sure the cleanest big city I've ever been to. I mean, you could eat your dinner off the sidewalks.
And there's no crime.
There's 0 crime. Mind you, there's no crime in... Well, not much. There's very little crime in China in the cities.
Yeah, almost no homeless.
No.
No graffiti. I remember when I went to Tokyo this last summer, I was walking around in the morning before some shops opened up, and I couldn't believe how there were like UPS delivery boxes sitting there in front of the stores with products for the stores, waiting for the stores to open, just sitting there with no one around it. I'm like, can you imagine that in the U.S.? They'd be gone in 30 seconds. You can't even have in my neighborhood in Denver, you can't even have a package on your front porch without some jerk driving by, getting out of their car and running up to your porch and grabbing it.
Yeah.
And there, it's obviously stuff because it's stores that is worth money, that is nice stuff because it's products for the stores, and it's just sitting there, and everyone just leaves it alone. I just thought that was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many good things about Tokyo. I'm feeling guilty now. I felt like the first 5 minutes of this podcast, I was just giving Japan such a hard time, but I was doing some research today, and the demographics are so interesting. But I'm now fully in my stride of talking about how great Tokyo is, because it is. It is so safe. It's so clean. I always say to people, you get the Asia experience of different language, people looking different. So if you're middle-aged white guy like us, you look different to most people walking down the street. So you get that experience, but at the same time, you can drink the water out the tap.
Yeah.
It's easy, it's clean, it's safe. So you kind of get that cultural shock, but without any of the stress of, am I going to get diarrhea if I touch the wrong thing?
Yeah.
Is there going to be any crime? Do I need to watch my wallet? How am I going to get around? That's easy in Japan.
Well, and the food's awesome too.
Yeah, the food. Golly.
It's like you go to China and it's tough to find good food.
Yeah, it is.
And you go to Japan and every place is awesome. Every little hole in the wall place, every little noodle shop in the subway. It's like they take such pride in their culture and their food that you go to every sushi place, they're great. Noodles, ramen. It's just I it's hard to describe how cool it is that you can just walk down the street and every little place you go in to get something to eat is amazing.
Yeah, because I think in most of, certainly in North America, if I arrive in a new town and you put restaurant into Google Maps, you sort of go, okay, no, McDonald's, no, Denny's, no, Pizza Hut, no, Spaghetti Factory, all the kind of chain stores, and then you narrow it down to restaurants, and there's like 5, and in Japan, you can just walk down the street, and as you say, you just go in some tiny place. You just, obviously you can't read the signs. You look in and you see people eating sushi, and you go, oh, it's a sushi place, okay. And it'll be amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, because they take, to be a sushi chef or whatever the term is, I mean, it takes years there.
It's unbelievable, considering you barely cook, well, you have to cook the rice, but, considering it's raw, it's an insane training program.
Yeah, and I know you go get. I remember I went with a buddy one time, and he actually taught in Japan for a while, so he spoke Japanese, and we went to get sushi in Denver, and we walked in, and they're like "Konnichiwa, konnichiwa," and as soon as he started talking to him, that's the only word they knew because they were Korean.
Actually, a friend of mine has a policy, and I think it's a really good one, that if a place serves 2 genres of food, both will be bad. So like if you're in the UK, you get places that do curry and fish and chips, and you think the curry's going to be bad, the fish and chips are going to be bad. I don't want to go. I think I don't want to go somewhere where they do sushi and Korean.
Yeah, I think all the best restaurants are ones you go in and they've got like one thing on the menu or a couple things on the menu.
Yeah,
the US is the same way. It's like you go to a place and it's got this massive menu and it's got Italian food and Chinese food and steaks and they're all going to be terrible. But you go to a place and it's like, always serve our hot dogs.
Yeah,
they're going to be good. And Japan's that way.
Like that dumpling place we went to in Taipei.
Yes,
they just served the best dumplings.
It wasn't like dumplings and pizza. it was just dumplings. And still, I would say, not to get off of Tokyo too much, of all the food that I've eaten traveling, in my top 3 are probably that dumpling place we went to in Taipei.
Oh yeah, because it was like sitting in a McDonald's with plastic chairs and crap cutlery. It was the furthest you can get from fine dining, but the food was so good it was kind of melting my brain. Yes,
it was amazing.
But yeah, in Tokyo, everywhere is great. And the longest I ever went was 2 weeks, and I was working. But I was working at an event, and so some days would be in at 9 a.m. till 3 p.m. and other days would be in like 4 p.m. till 11. So we had loads of time, me and my colleague. Yeah. And when we weren't at the event, we didn't need to be anywhere. So we just explored Tokyo. And what I love is I've got all these pictures on my phone of us having a great time. And I couldn't find one of those restaurants now. I wouldn't have a clue what part of Tokyo they were in, what they were called, where they were. And that's, I think, one of the best things about Tokyo is just wandering around and just going, there's a ramen place and it's full of people, so that means it's probably good. I'll go in there.
So one of my thoughts on food in Tokyo is, as good as the food is, it's not a place to go if you only like Western food and you're not willing to try new things.
No, if you don't eat like a local in Tokyo, you are missing 50% of the experience of being in Tokyo.
Not only are you missing, but there's really not a lot of options. Like, I mean, you can go to McDonald's or something, but there's not a lot of Western restaurants. And especially in certain neighborhoods, it's pretty much all Japanese food. And you either need to, try sushi. And if you can't eat, fish or allergic to something, get ramen or get some udon or some noodles. And I would tell people before you go, make sure you know how to use chopsticks. Like, the last thing you want to do is be at a sushi restaurant and be shoveling food in your mouth with your hand like you're some sort of animal. Don't and if you're American and you do that, say you're Canadian, so you don't embarrass our country any more than it's already been embarrassed this week.
I suspect there'll be a little more coming in the next 4 years, but we promise not to talk about that. No, but that's absolutely right. Because when I first went to Japan, I couldn't use chopsticks, and I just had to learn. I mean, I guess. Well, I couldn't imagine asking for a fork in a sushi place. I mean, geez, they might not kick you out, but I doubt they'd be very impressed. So I just got on the learning curve. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And now you say it, there isn't a lot of Western food. I never really thought about it because when I'm there, I try and eat like a local, but there's really not.
Well, and I always kind of think, what would James Bond do in a situation? That's kind of how I live my life.
Well, I'm English, and so I kind of am kind of Bondish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And James Bond would use chopsticks. He wouldn't eat sushi with his hand like an animal.
No, he wouldn't. He wouldn't go to TGI Fridays every night either, like those people you knew in Paris.
No, he would not. He would, and then he'd have probably some really fun experiences after dinner in Tokyo.
You can get led astray in Tokyo. It's not like you mentioned earlier. There's a bit of an underbelly of basically people getting absolutely hammered on a Friday night, and
hammered. There's weird sex stuff in Tokyo.
Yeah,
allegedly.
Allegedly, yeah. I heard that there was vending machines where you can buy used pants and.
Anthony Bourdain had a whole episode on Tokyo where it was just about the weird underbelly of Tokyo.
Yeah,
that I would recommend anybody listening or watches.
But for some reason, it feels like an innocent weirdness, if that makes sense, because the people are so polite. Like if you go somewhere like Berlin. There is some.
Oh no! Now we're going back to the Berlin bathroom story.
But you could get involved in some things after hours where it's just genuinely a bit wrong. But in Japan, because they're all so polite, kind of for some reason it doesn't feel quite as bad when you hear about all this kinky stuff people have got up to.
Yeah. I don't know, and I think maybe Japanese are just kind of more adorable than Germans. So you can picture when they do stuff that it's cuter.
It's the only country in the world I feel tall, so it's everyone looks quite cute to me. It's great.
Yeah, I felt pretty when I went in last summer. I actually felt pretty tall, and I'm 5'11", but I could really see over everybody. You know, walking around and stuff, which is actually really nice.
Yeah, it's great. I'm 5'9", so if I walk down the street and I'm taller than average, it's amazing. But just talking about that politeness, we kind of mentioned it already, but the levels of politeness in Japan really are next level, aren't they?
Oh yeah, it's amazing. I stayed this last time. I stayed at the Conrad, in downtown Tokyo, which is a really nice high-end hotel, and it was about the best customer service I've ever seen in my life. Like everybody bowed, they knew my name. The lounge I went to at night, they always knew what I wanted. It was just wonderful. It's hard to describe what a wonderful experience it was compared to some other places where they just don't seem to care if you're there or not.
Yeah, I suppose the only thing I struggle with it sometimes is you kind of always feel like you're doing something wrong. When I arrive in a restaurant in Japan, I often just think, oh, I'm pretty sure I've just done something wrong. There's always a slight feeling that you're not matching their politeness with your understanding of their societal norms.
Yeah, I just overly bow all the time, and I crawl on my hands and knees into places just to show my obedience.
Someone told me before we got to Japan the first time, they said thank you is arigato. So, I go in and people will show me to the table, arigato, I'm trying to be polite.
Yeah.
And then after about 3 nights, someone said to me, it's actually kind of rude to just say arigato. You have to, because arigato gozaimasu means thank you very much. And he goes, if you just say arigato, it's kind of rude because you're not bothering to say the rest of the phrase.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's like, oh, cheers. Yeah, tar. It's like saying tar, or So
What's that?
it's an English thing. Tar means it's a Northern English thing. Means thanks. People say tar, but it's like,
Really? I always forget your Northern English.
yeah, exactly. But it's like an abbreviated thank you, and I thought, oh my god, like I've learned thank you, and I keep saying it, and it turns out it's still not enough. You gotta add this extra bit. So I always have a slight feeling of guilt that I'm doing something wrong, but I mean, they're so polite, and it's a really amazing experience. I mean, I'll give you a quick story. Actually, one time when it bugged me. So when we were working this event for 2 weeks, I used to go and get a cappuccino in the same little cafe every morning, just at the subway station. We were in a place called Hachioji, and I used to go to this coffee place, and I would say cappuccino. I can't even remember what one is, but one cappuccino, and the woman would take the order and then just immediately start talking, and the whole time she's making the cappuccino, she's talking. Obviously, I mean, if I can't remember what the word for one is, you can tell my Japanese isn't great. And after a while, a few days in, I happened to be in there with a Japanese guy I knew who spoke English, and I said, "What's she saying to me? Like, she's staring at me and talking. What is she saying?" And he said, "She's explaining what she's doing. I'm putting the coffee in the thing. I'm grinding your coffee now. I'm adding the milk." She's just talking through it all the time, and it was quite cool. But after 2 weeks, I used to go in, and I was just thinking, don't do the explaining thing, please. It's like it's 8 o'clock in the morning. Please, just make my coffee.
Yeah,
I'm good. I just woke up. Please. But it's kind of it's overwhelmingly polite, whether you want it to be or not.
Well, and one of the interesting things I feel like about Japan in general, or Tokyo, is that you never have to worry about buying anything fake.
No.
Japan has incredibly stringent laws on selling fake anything. So if you go into a purse store to buy a gift for somebody, or you want to go to a watch store and buy an expensive watch, it is going to be real. And that's probably about the only place in the world. Maybe Singapore is maybe a little bit like that. But I would be very concerned going to some places in China or Malaysia and buying something expensive. But Japan has this really interesting culture. The other part of their culture is they don't really like used things. They tend to like new things. So if you do like if you don't mind some used nice things, Japan is really a good place to go buy stuff, because it's going to be authentic. They don't put a really high value on things that are used, and it can be real. And with the yen not being super strong right now, it's an absolute kind of shopper's paradise for luxury goods.
I did not know that. That is also a very big difference from China. I mean,
yes,
they've had Apple stores in China that it turned out were just everything was fake. The branding was fake. The computers were fake. I mean, in China, you can buy a MacBook Pro that was made in Sichuan province for about $7. That's not the case in Japan. No, it's incredibly clean. It's incredibly polite, safe, fascinating, a brilliant place to wander around. The food's exceptional. Do you have any before we move on to recommended sites? I feel like you have a further general observation.
I was actually my observation is we should move on to recommended sites.
Great minds think alike.
So that's perfect. Yes,
we're like Trump and Vance. We're just the same mind operating.
Yeah, I don't even know. Usually, I'd be like, "Well, you're so and so, whoever the worst one is." But
we're Trump and
I don't
Putin.
know.
Trump and Putin, peas in a pod. Sorry, I don't mean it. We're all living it. Let's go to recommended sites before we get too clinically depressed about the upcoming World War III. Recommended sites. I've got a list.
Okay, I'll say to start. There's two that I do not think are worth it.
Go on.
One is the fish market.
Okay. Why do you say that?
Well, the original old one closed down, and now they've got a newer one that's not quite as charming. you got to get up super early to get there, and it's just not that exciting for how much effort you have to go, how crowded it is. Now, there's some really cool like little sushi restaurants off in the fish market or based off to the side of the fish market, which are cool. But I don't think it's really worth it unless you're just like a massive foodie that's super into sushi and you've always wanted to go. But if you're like there with your family and your little kids, I just say skip it.
Yeah, I get that. I went, but we didn't go first thing in the morning. We ate at one of the sushi restaurants. And
Yeah.
you paid a massive premium for
Oh,
sushi.
it's so expensive.
Yeah, for sushi that was the same as everywhere. Because everywhere else, by midday, everyone's got the fish anyway. So whether you eat it there, I agree. I think it's a cool experience. I went to the old one, Tsukiji. I agree. It wasn't amazing, but worth seeing. But
So
don't get up at 3 a.m. to go and watch it.
no, that the other thing I don't really think is worth it is Tokyo Tower.
You see, I do, but only because you grasp the scale of Tokyo.
Yeah.
I mean, the tower itself is just a massive tower looking at other things, but
Yeah, it's like a kind of a lame version of the Eiffel Tower.
yeah. I just think most cities you go up a tall building and you kind of see the city and then you see it give way to countryside, but you just don't get that in Tokyo. You just see it stretch to the horizon, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just part of it. I don't really like going up to buildings and looking around. Like I get bored after 5 seconds of it. But I know some people really like that stuff. But yeah, to me it wasn't that great.
No, I get that. Come on, what's some recommended? We've heard 2 non-recommended sites.
Um, I think any of the big temples are really cool.
Yeah.
Whether they're Shinto or Buddhist. So there's basically 2 main religions in Japan, which are Buddhism. And if you're Japanese, you're just gonna be rolling your eyes because I really don't know what I'm talking about. But my understanding is they worship kind of a mythological Buddha, the Amida Buddha, who represents like everything good and kind of incorporate into this mythical Buddha. And then Shintoism, which is an old Japanese religion that more like ancestor spirits and nature spirits and things like that. So those are kind of the 2 main religions, and both any of their temples are super interesting and super cool and weren't all destroyed like in China, and way different than you get that if you're from Western place that you go to without being, God, how do I say it? Without being all eat, pray, love, full of, Westerners with dreadlocks wearing elephant print pattern baggy pants and
no one's finding themselves.
No, it's none of that ridiculous stuff. It's just who they are, and it's super interesting. And without all the ridiculous, I came here because I'm an absolute mess, and I think the only thing that's going to solve it is if I meditate.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I really like that. Now you're not going to like this because we're just different, but I think Tokyo Disneyland is awesome.
Okay.
Absolutely awesome. So there's 2 parks. They're way cheaper than they are in the U.S. Tokyo Disneyland is very similar to Tokyo regular Disneyland in Anaheim, except everything's in Japanese. But it's just really, really fun and really clean, and you think of customer service in Japan being so amazing, and then you think of Disney customer service being amazing. You put them together, and it is unbelievable. I mean, every they call them cast members that work for Disney, but they're like double waving with their hands with big smiles, and they're so happy. It was way different than Hong Kong when they're just kind of like pointing at the rides all grumpy in Disneyland. Tokyo is awesome. So, and there's 2 parks. So there's Tokyo Disneyland, which is similar to what we're used to. And then there's Tokyo Disney Sea, and that's a super interesting story because before California Adventure, which is the second park in Anaheim, was created, they were talking about making another Disney park over in Long Beach called Port Disney. And they created all these rides for it, and the Port Disney never materialized, and Disney built California Adventure instead. So there's all these plans that they had created for Port Disney. Well, the Japanese took those plans and used them as a basis for Tokyo Disney Sea, which is a park right next to Disneyland, and it is awesome. It has rides that are nowhere else in the world. There's a whole Jules Verne section with 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and Journey to the Center of the Earth. There's parts that look like Italy. There's parts that look like New England in the United States. It is just such an awesome, awesome park, and rides that are nowhere else. So it's that the only place you can go is Tokyo Disney Sea. And if you're going and you've got like an extra day, go to Tokyo Disney Sea and spend the day. It is so fun and so cool, and it's amazing, absolutely amazing. And especially if you have kids, I'd say go to both. But even without kids, I really think it's a must see there. It's that cool.
Oh, that's awesome! I'd never even considered going. I mean, I'm not against it. I just, just never thought about it. That's cool. Shall I give you? Shall I? Shall I give you some recommended sites? Have you got more? Are we going to alternate? How's this going to work?
I think I'm over it.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't think I have any more.
I'll just monologue from here on out. See you next week.
Those are my main ones. I mean, I think shopping, going to some of the different neighborhoods, checking out the like Harajuku, where a lot of fashion comes from, is super cool. And there's so many cool neighborhoods in Tokyo, and you could just spend months going through all of them. So
yeah.
Those are kind of my probably big recommendations based on what I like. So what about you?
Well,
any you don't like?
No. I mean, you could do a lot worse when in Tokyo than just putting a pin in the Tokyo subway map and just going, I'm going there and I'm going to walk around for 2 hours.
Yeah.
You'll find something cool and something interesting. You'll definitely find good food. I have if you want to kind of, for a viewpoint, I remember walking across the Rainbow Bridge, which goes right across Tokyo Harbour at sunset, and that was a really special moment. That's a pretty stunning spot. So the Rainbow Bridge has a pedestrianised walkway underneath it, and it's kind of the main bridge across Tokyo Harbour. Thought that was just, maybe that was because I got a personal attachment to it, but I just had a really cool hike across it at sunset. And we rode bikes. I recommend hiring bikes. It's perhaps a little dangerous because it's in the middle of a big city, but if you've got your wits about you, people drive pretty sensibly in Japan.
Yeah.
And you can cover a lot of ground. So riding a bike, and I actually think you can't ride a bike across the Rainbow Bridge. You have to walk it and push it. But anyway, riding a bike, I'd recommend. The Imperial Palace, I thought was pretty cool. Just to have that big green space. You can't get anywhere near the palace itself, but the big green space in the heart of the financial district, because it's right by Tokyo Station. Yeah. The main railway station, which ironically isn't really in the city centre, the true city centre. I thought have you been to the Imperial Palace?
I've been through on that walk that you talked about through all the greenery.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool. I think any of the Japanese parks are awesome.
Yeah. On the hiking front as well, I was going to recommend, if you go west from Tokyo, if you just want a day out of the city, I did some great hiking in the forests out west in the hills, Mount Takao. There's kind of a couple of cable cars that kind of whisk you out from the parking lot up into the forest, and there are hours of trails, and there are kind of mountain huts up there where you can buy a Coke, and it's quite cool. There are loads of hiking trails. So if
Did you go to that suicide forest?
I don't think so. What's that? Oh, I mean, I can guess, but
yeah, there's like a forest there that everyone goes and like commits suicide.
Oh,
it's one of those weird dark places in Japan.
Maybe I did. I really hope not. Anyway, I mean, I was happy.
That's good.
We were talking about districts a second ago. On my list of places to recommend was Akihabara. which is one of the districts, and they call it the electronic district, which, I mean, take it with a pinch of salt, because everywhere, all the kind of city centre places are just overwhelmingly bright and noisy. But Akihabara is kind of the gaming district. And I don't really know how to describe it, but imagine if you put 500,000 video gamers in a very small part of Tokyo and just let them run loose. That's kind of what it looks like. They have these huge gaming centers. After an hour there, you're completely exhausted by flashing lights and noise, but it's pretty cool to see.
That does sound cool. I didn't go there, but that sounds cool. I like flashing lights. I
mean, Shibuya Crossing is maybe the most famous site in Tokyo. That's if you Google crossing Tokyo, you'll find it. It's a 3-way crossing where all the lights turn green at the same time on all 3 crossings on this intersection. So suddenly everyone floods across, and it goes from cars driving to people walking in 2 seconds. And I don't know how many people cross each time, maybe 500 on each, so 1,500. But suddenly the road just floods with people. And if you go on YouTube or Google Images, you'll find Shibuya Crossing. And it may be a bit of a cliche, but it was pretty cool.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of Times Square. Right.
It's exactly what you think it's going to be.
And just the, all the, just because Tokyo is really known for all the crazy lights and signs and stuff like that. And visually, it's just such an amazing place. Like Times Square.
Yeah, 100%. And also you forget when you're kind of doing the tourist thing that actually it's a lot of people's day-to-day reality. And one of the things I recommend doing is riding the subway at rush hour, because you will get a new understanding of what it means to be a commuter.
Yeah.
If you're ever unfortunate enough to be on the subway at rush hour, it's just insane. And I remember just being on it and just thinking, there isn't enough money in the world could make me do this every day. The subway is always pretty busy. It's pretty rare.
Well, I like the signs in the subway that say if you take a picture of a girl's skirt, you're going to be arrested. Which I don't know that I've ever seen anywhere else other than Tokyo.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's so. If you've only ever ridden the subway in London and Paris, and you just don't know what it means to be on a busy subway.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing with the guys with white gloves pushing people in is true, isn't it? If you're ever on it at about 5-6 p.m., it is insane.
Yeah.
But as a thing to experience once, it's amazing. To just kind of see that much humanity moving at one time.
Well, their whole subway system's awesome.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It's very efficient. It's very easy to navigate. It's very clean. People do. I mean, it's jammed at times, but people wait in line. Yeah. They stand and wait. It's so cool how when the doors open, they stand there and wait for people to get off, and then they all start cramming in.
Yeah.
Most countries, they would be trying to cram in while people are trying to get off.
Yeah.
And it's very efficient.
It's the most fantastic subway, because it can really move you around a city, even of that scale, really quickly. I think the subway is a real experience in Japan. But as I say, don't do everything you can to avoid rush hour, but just do it once. Go at rush hour once just to see it.
Yeah, I would say don't rent a car when you're there.
No, you don't want a car.
And I would also say don't go in the heat of the summer. It is brutal. Oh,
God, I went in August one time. When I went for 2 weeks, it was in August.
Yeah.
And it was most days it was okay, but some days, because it's insane, because that humidity. It's not just the heat. It was high 30s in Fahrenheit, so what's that? Sort of well north of 100. Sorry, it was 30 Celsius, so well north of 100 Fahrenheit. But the humidity.
Yeah.
And there's something about being in a city with that kind of heat, and it's coming off the pavement, it's coming off the buildings. It's just it is hot in summer. I bet in when it snows, 'cause it snows a couple of times a year in Tokyo in the winter. I bet that's amazing to see it covered in snow.
Yeah.
But they get real seasons. Hey, if you go, I mean, if I could choose a time to go, I'd probably go April, May. You get nice warm days, cools down
Yeah.
at night, really nice temperature.
When you're there, do you worry about Godzilla attacks?
Yeah, occasionally, but I just I take a really high hotel room, and then if he swipes the building, I'm above it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Oh, I got one more recommendation. I went to the baseball.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, I know they're
was
really into baseball.
Super fun. I didn't realize I went to the final of the J League, which is like the Major League Baseball of Japan, and I thought I was just going to a game. I just thought, oh yeah, okay, go to the baseball. It turned out it was kind of like going to the last game of the World Series, and people going crazy. I thought, wow, people really like their baseball here. But then turned out that it was the biggest game of the year. But yeah, it was awesome because Japanese people are super polite, but then when something happens, they all do that really polite kind of mini clap where you have your hands just in front of your face.
Yeah.
But also this is a typical thing where it's super fun, but it's kind of weird, but you don't mind. They had the beer servers were walking around with huge barrels of beer on their back and a pump in their hand. So if you ask for a beer, they take a glass out and pump the beer, but they're carrying it on their back.
Wow.
It's not bottles or cans. They pump it by hand. But they're dressed up as schoolgirls.
Do you like when girls dress like schoolgirls pump with their hands?
Actually, I got another story about that in Japan. No, I'm only kidding. But it's kind of one of those things where you think that's really weird, but but it's just fun. Like, it's just crazy. I don't know why they're dressed as schoolgirls, and they come up and they go to instead of just sort of announcing themselves at the bottom of the section and going, "Hey guys, who wants a beer?" They come up to each row. People can't see me. I'm trying to describe what this is like. They put their hands together and then rest their chin on the top of both their hands and tilt their head sideways and go, "Konnichiwa, bido, bido, bido."
Yeah.
And it's like incredibly weird, but at the same time, super fun. And I really enjoyed the baseball. I thought it was just it was such a clash of cultures to see baseball mixed with Japanese culture. I had a really good time.
So back to the beer girls.
Yeah, sure.
Do they?
I knew which part of the story you were going to focus on.
Do they ever use both hands?
I was just taking a sip of my beer when you said that.
I'm just curious. Like, can they pump two at the same time, or is it?
They seem to be able to. Yeah, the pressure builds up quite fast, though.
Okay, just clarifying.
Yeah. I also got led astray a couple of nights in Tokyo, and it was super fun. So I'm just going to leave it at that. But you can go and get rowdy in Tokyo.
I did. I'm not as much as I make jokes about stuff. I'm just not a night person. So I'm a morning person, and not a lot of crazy debauchery happens at like 6 a.m. when I'm at my peak.
No.
So yeah, my humor doesn't always translate into reality.
Do you always wake up at your peak?
Pretty much, yeah. Yes, yeah. Good one. That's a good one. Yeah, I like taking a walk through the morning woods.
This is a family-friendly. Well, is it really? Kind of a family-friendly podcast.
I think you've tried to keep it family-friendly, and I'm always trying to push the boundaries.
I can't imagine many kids find it very interesting.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't imagine there are many kids going, "Dad, get Opposites Abroad on. I want to hear TT's thoughts on Berlin."
To be honest, I don't find kids that interesting.
That's a fair point. Yeah, no, I'll give you that. But wrapping it up, Tokyo. For me, I went for the longest I ever went was 2 weeks, and I definitely had enough of it. The kind of politeness, the extreme formality kind of bugged me after 2 weeks. But I think if you want to go somewhere for a week, I can't imagine anywhere that is more I want to use the word stimulating, but I know you're just going to lead to a whole new round of innuendos. But if I could use it, more stimulating than Tokyo. I mean, food, culture, the sheer scale of it, the subway, it's just kind of a life-changing experience to see Tokyo.
Well, and I think if you have kids, it is the perfect place to take your kids, if you're a Westerner, to expose them to some Asian culture in a way that isn't just either completely shocking, or they're worried about what they're eating or drinking, or full of... Because Tokyo is a big city, but it's not like jam full of tourists. Like when you walk around, it's not like being in like, I don't know, Bangkok or somewhere where there's just tons of American tourists because it's so cheap, or backpackers, or like, it is pretty much you're in the Japanese culture wandering around, and then you're like, oh, well, there's another tourist. Like, and I like that. So if you have kids and you want to get them an experience where they can see a different culture that's an Asian culture and they're Western, I think it's the perfect place to do it. It's safe, it's clean, you drink the water, the food is good. There's a Disneyland. There's also historic sites and museums, and just walking around is amazing. And I think it's perfect for a family. But then you can also have fun as an adult on a solo trip or a trip with a spouse. It's just such a great place.
I think we've talked before about if you'd never really been outside your own country, or certainly your own culture, where would you go? And I think you said London, and I think that's probably a good shout. Go somewhere that's, like England, Australia, somewhere that's kind of like where you live, but a bit different.
Yeah.
But if you want to start pushing out into different cultures where you can't speak the language, where you can't even read the signs, and it's different, and you're going to visibly look like a minority, you're going to look out of place, you're going to have that experience of being a minority. Tokyo is like the gateway drug to Asian travel.
Yeah, I agree.
But ironically, it's kind of the gateway drug you keep going back to because it's so great. If I went for a week a year, I can't imagine not being excited to get on the plane.
Well, and it's not super expensive to fly there from the U.S. either.
No, it's quite expensive when you're there. Ish.
Not as much as it used to be, because the yen's just not doing very well, at least compared to the dollar. Hotels aren't super cheap. I mean, I'm sure you can find hostels and stuff, but food I feel like is comparable to the U.S. But flights, I mean, you can get a flight from L.A. straight on a budget Japanese airline for not a lot of money, and you're going someplace that's just really, really interesting.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, Tokyo flights. Fly to Haneda, not Narita. Narita is so far away.
Yeah.
From Tokyo. Tokyo Haneda's right in town. But Narita it's like those airports that the low-cost carriers in Europe use. We'll fly you to Barcelona. It's a mere 3 hours from Barcelona. Don't fly to Narita. Fly to Haneda if you can.
Yeah, and I think I flew last time. I think I actually flew to Narita, and it was kind of a pain, but it was okay.
It's okay, but it just, when you've got off a flight that long, an hour and a half, transfer is just not really what you choose. But
and when we do these things, I don't normally like give shout outs to hotels, but I tell you, the Conrad in Tokyo is one of the best hotels I've ever stayed at.
Have we sent them the payment details?
I don't
payment
think
terms
they care that much.
14 days upon receipt, I think, are our payment. No, I'm only kidding.
But it was an absolutely amazing hotel, and I used points for it, and it was well worth it. Yeah,
and it's an amazing city. Maybe certainly in my top 3 cities in the world to spend a week in.
I think next time I go to Japan, I want to go to Osaka, which I've never been to.
Well, let's go together. I've never been.
Okay.
All right, it's a date.
Yeah, I pretty much say yes to everything.
Well, actually, no. I was just thinking about getting led astray in Tokyo. I feel like I could reach the point at which you would say no to something. But no, we should totally do that. But hey, that was fun reminiscing about one of the greatest cities on the planet. And one of those places where I remember Anthony Bourdain said you have your life before Tokyo and your life after Tokyo. And I think he's right. It's amazing. And it's been fun reminiscing. We need to get back there.
Yes. I loved it. I went last summer and I just absolutely loved it.
All right, Osaka next year.
Deal.